Fantasy Plane of Existence, Chapter 9, Glycerine Cast. The weeks after the healing spell went by quickly. Jenna and Winnie were on better terms, but things still weren't the same between them. They were hanging out again, and there were days when they excluded Kat. It didn't bother her much. She expected that things would go that way. Jet's eerie fascination with Winnie had both Kat and Jenna distracted. Jenna sensed that something wasn't quite right about her brother. He acted like himself when he wasn't in the presence of Winnie. When she was around, he blindly followed her demands and was totally different in a way that greatly disturbed her. Winnie had fun showing off his love for her. "Jet," she cooed, "tell everyone what an awesome time we had on our date last night." Normally, Jet hung out with his buddies on Jock Row talking about football. He didn't spend his time gushing over girls. Jenna was nauseated as she passed by her brother bragging very loudly about their date to Winnie's circle of snot leaders. "Yeah, I don't think we watched much of the movie. Winnie's such a good kisser," Jet praised. It was like he was speaking Winnie's thoughts for her. Jenna stopped behind her brother and poked him in the back. "You have football practice tonight, right?" He walked a few steps away from Winnie to work out his schedule with his sister. He seemed fine, like old Jet. "What is wrong with you, Jet? You're acting totally whipped. It's like the Addams Family. Really odd." Jenna skewered him with an earshot of Winnie. Before he could answer, Winnie moved in closer and slipped her arm around his waist and ducked under his arm. "Will you walk me to class, Jet?" she cooed, giving Jenna a dirty look as she guided him away. They glided down the hallway together, Winnie prattling on about a new cheer she was trying to learn. Madison and a few of the other cheerleaders looked on with envy. Jenna was dumbfounded. Lunch for Kat was awkward. Jet didn't mention Winnie other than to apologize for the scene in Jenna's room. "I know I made you guys really uncomfortable, and I'm sorry." He blathered some lame excuse about being really confused about his feelings and how he needed to sort things out. Kat wanted to not like him anymore, but he was being so sweet to her, genuinely listening about her parents and the tension between Jenna and Winnie. He made cute, sarcastic comments at the right moments, making her laugh. Ugh, why did he have to fall for Winnie? True, she was beautiful now, but her personality was still the same, bossy, impatient, self-righteous. Jet was just the opposite. Then it struck her. Maybe that was it. Opposites attract, right? She vowed to never let him know how she felt about him. Being friends with Jet was better than nothing. After fourth period, Kat asked for a hall pass to the girls' bathroom. She broke the rules and slipped down to the one on the first floor and met Jenna there. They slipped out the window and scaled the length of the back of the school. Kat ran her hands along the ivy vine that was climbing up the red brick. Jenna daringly waved and winked at people as they passed by the classroom windows. She quickly crouched down before any teachers saw her, then on to the next window to clown again. Finally, they made it out to the student parking lot and hopped into the back of Jenna's car. Jenna pulled a pack of cigarettes from her bag, lit a smoke, and took a drag, then handed it to Kat. She took a brief puff and blew out the smoke. It tasted terrible, and her face scrunched up in disgust. "Don't take any if you aren't going to inhale," Jenna scolded before continuing. "I've been really concerned about Jet. Him liking Winnie is just wrong. I mean, grody to the max." Kat nodded. "Yeah, he definitely acts different around her. Did you know he apologized to me today because of them sucking face in your room?" Jenna blew smoke out of her nose and looked at her with intensity. The burgundy flecks in her amber eyes seemed to glow like hot coals. She reminded Kat of a dragon. Her jaw was clenched so hard the words barely escaped her lips. "He hasn't been the same since that day he got sick on the way home from school." Ugh. Kat tried to think back what had gone on that day. She couldn't recall anything out of the ordinary. Jenna finished her smoke and crushed it out on her tongue and then flicked it out the window. Kat shrugged. "I don't know what to tell you, Jenna. I can't remember anything weird happening that day. He just got sick and Winnie was really nice to him." Jenna ran her hands through her hair. She was intently analyzing the situation. Finally, she reasoned. Yeah, but Winnie being nice to him wouldn't make him dig her. She's always been nice to Jet. He's been her crush forever. Plus, I know my brother. Kat sighed deeply. Well, Winnie likes to get her way. What if she put a... Before she could finish her sentence, Jenna began fervently digging through her bag. She pulled out Ruby's grimoire and flipped through it rapidly, searching for something that she'd seen. We have to get back soon. It's been like 10 minutes, Kat warned her. Just wait a sec, okay? I know I saw it in here. Jenna kept flipping through the same few pages, but didn't find what she was looking for. Ugh, come on, she exclaimed in frustration before she spotted a few pages that were stuck together. Careful not to rip the pages, Jenna gingerly pulled them apart. The spell title said, Potion to Instill Love. There was a pinkish hue on the edge of the pages that had been fastened together. The realization hit Jenna like a football tackle. She looked at Kat with rage. Gatorade! She put a love potion in her drink and shared it with Jet. Jenna was blind with anger, and Winnie knew how opposed Jenna was to her unrequited love for Jet and had promised to never cast a spell on him. She'd betrayed them both. Ulnik Boyaja Misya! They're back from the mission, Ajara Jessamine announced to her council. She bowed her head in sadness as she reported that it was true the gnomes were building an army to attack the pixies. Kenkros was not himself. Pelivan had been closest to him during scouting. He informed her that the king of the gnomes' eyes had turned black, and his teeth, once very much like children's baby teeth, were now sharp and yellowed. In fact, this malady had befallen all of the gnomes. Maui Nyemstarius Raska Samnoinom, Onik Bolmach. We did not try and talk with the gnomes. They are sick. Pelivan told her with grave concern. It was apparent that although the pixies did not want to clash with their neighbors, they did have to prepare to defend the willow. Ajara Jessamine lifted her hands to quiet the buzzing of voices from the council members. Each of them was talking excitedly about their next move. Mawizdat Kasparak Anik. We wait to fight them, she ordered. The pixies would behave only in a defensive manner. They would have the advantage of the willow and its power. Some of the council members disagreed with her decision, and they wanted to take the gnome village by attacking without provocation. She would not hear of it, especially with the possibility of the gnomes being sick. She didn't want to take the chance that the black illness would infect the pixie plane of existence as well. Ni astorojna vilava будет pranositka maui vinak. Safety of the willow will bring us victory, she instructed. Nuk maui будет pasilata mlad achanak umak. But we will continue to send scouts for intelligence. There was some grumbling amongst the council members, but they all followed the directives of the Ajara. Pelivan was exhausted from the excursion, but found himself wandering the tall grasses of the realm looking for Dasakata. He wanted to tell her about all he had seen. After discovering the gnomes had the black illness, he knew too well the danger they were facing. He didn't want to wait any longer to see her. Pelivan finally spied her working busily, bundling sticks and humming a tune. He stayed for a moment behind a patch of prairie grass to drink in her beauty. Dasakata's white hair sparkled in the sunlight, and her violet eyes were electrifying. Her graceful wings were aqua, violet, pink, and green, a perfect combination to match her hair and eyes. She worked quickly and skillfully, which gave her a strong physique. After admiring her for quite some time, he fluttered above her. Briva Dasakada, he called. She immediately dropped her bundle, a flush in her cheeks, and a smile spreading like wildfire across her petal-pink lips. In an instant, Pelivan was standing in front of her. Without any regard for the consequences, Dasakata grabbed him and held him tight against her. He covered her face in forbidden kisses. Pelivan, mina zdatka dlantiam, mina sprashivatka uba misya, numnem umek, veseyo pixie nemrazka. I've been waiting for you. I've asked about the mission, but there was no information. All the pixies are not talking. It had been odd knowing that some of them were out risking their life cycle, while at the willow everyone remained the same. Hushed tones were used whenever a pixie mentioned the mission. It wasn't an appropriate conversation. Pelivan broke from their embrace. Vestrat mina nochat. Mina budet razga oba misya. Meet me tonight. I will tell you about the mission. He saw the sour look on her face and wished he could stay longer. Mina idat vide sembia I njem nistrozna razga zdesa. I'm going to see my family, and it is not safe to talk here, he quickly explained. Dasakara boldly locked lips with him again before he fluttered away. Nochat va destaya devrak. Tonight, at the 10th branch, he whispered before slipping away and flying home. Ministara and another pixie pushed through the prairie grass where Dasakara was working. Minaduma slishat katim razga. I think I heard you talking, Ministara said as she looked around. Dasakara shook her head. Yem. Then busily bundled her sticks and flew off to bring the hoard of twigs to the furniture maker. It seemed like an eternity before Miyam and Yadak were asleep. She gingerly crept out of her little hollow into the vast hallways of the great willow. She was going to meet Pelivan outside on the 10th branch. All of the pixies had been instructed to stay inside the willow by the council. She winced at her decision. Another code broken. She was breathless as she waited in the shadows for him. Finally, her ears pricked up to his sweet whisper. Dasakata, yamsesa. Dasakata, are you here? She came out from the shadows. Briva, she said shyly. Pelivan gave her a wide smile and grasped her hands. Minus datka veseo sevod dlan vremyak. I've waited all day for this time, he said excitedly. She nodded in agreement and let him place a kiss on each of her eyes. Then the tale came spilling out of him in rushed sentences. Nom kem kros uchnalabo nak. Onk glazik chornak ia onk njem pravdaka. Nem kem kros mawiznatka. Onik planaras barak pixi vilo. The gnome leader, Kenkros, is very sick. His eyes are black and he is not well. Not the Kenkros we know. They plan to attack the pixie willow. Bachmak! Why? Dasakata asked. She was so bewildered by the news of the gnome's sickness and their intentions to attack. Pelivan looked gravely into her eyes. He hesitated when he saw Dasakata's reaction before continuing, trying not to upset her. Onk razgo oba pixie letita. Onk duma stranika. Kenkros razga njem znatka maui pixie. He spoke about pixies flying. He thought it strange. He spoke like he doesn't know us. Dasakata's face fell when she heard his explanation. The gnomes had kept to themselves, to be sure, but they'd always been friendly, allies against the human plane of existence. Why would they be hostile towards their flying? Countless times in the past they had warned the gnomes the humans were headed toward the bridge. They would quickly go into the safety of their burrows without leaving a trace. Working together benefited the gnomes and pixies. The strange sickness was obviously the cause of their rift. Manog gnome prinasitka ekornomik onik domak. Many gnomes are bringing acorns into their homes, Pelivan noted. Dasakata nodded her head, indicating she understood what that meant. They were preparing for battle, stocking up on food supplies. The last war had been long before her own life cycle. The legends told of the changelings taking too many children, causing widespread panic in the human realm. The pixie had to confront them and return some of the children. The Wikanka had been dragged into the mess, resulting in the great genocide of their kind. That had been the last war, centuries ago now. Maui nikogs barak samnoi num, etak stranika. We've never battled with gnomes. This is strange, Dasakata answered. Pelivan whispered into her ears. Mina znatka nadak nawi dilat katulak. I think we need to make weapons. The tension made Dasakata run her hands through her pearly white hair. Mina nem hoches barak gnome. Maui nem raska samnoyanik. I don't want to fight the gnomes. We can't talk with them? Pelivan shook his head. Diplomacy wasn't an option. The only thing that would save them was if they found out the cause of their illness and cured it before an attack. At this point, defending the willow was essential to survival. Mawik ichtak puchimok onik bonik. Venichtak mediat planom. We must find out why they are sick, then find medicine for the gnomes. Pelivan and Dasakata held each other for a long time without speaking, each of them staring off into the distance of the Vudrak. Pelivan had shared the classified information with her. Could she confide her secrets to him? How would he react knowing that she'd visited forbidden places? Before she could tell Pelivan about the human girl and what she'd seen her do, she needed to be certain that her suspicions were right. Dasakata must see the gnomes for herself. High up in the outer branches of the willow, they suddenly spotted vague lights heading towards them. Pelivan grabbed her hand and pulled her after him, his wings flapping wildly. Maui Sabirius! We're going, he said in a panic. Dasakata broke away from his grasp and flew out of the safety of the branches. She wanted to witness the gnome illness, but she hadn't thought it would be so soon. There they were, riding squirrels, their torches burning brightly as they quickly approached the willow. Dasakata couldn't believe her eyes. Their appearance rattled her. Inky black eyes, sharp yellow teeth, snarling in anger. It was just as Pelivan described, all friendly demeanor gone from them. In an instant, she realized that she was in danger and flew back into the safety of the green hanging canopy. Pelivan was frustrated with her for acting so foolishly. Tem ida domak, mina raskaza jarajesamen unik priyakat. You go home. I will tell Queen Jessamine they are coming, he ordered. There wasn't time for a last kiss. She glided to the entrance of the willow, and as she entered, the horn sounded. Dasakata was shocked to see Ministara waiting for her when she slipped into her home. Yam, she gasped. Ministara was stern. Gdzie tiem, nem niastorozna. Where have you been? It's not safe. Dasakata didn't tell her about the meeting with Pelivan. Instead, she told her what she'd seen. Ministara listened intently as Dasakata recounted the black eyes and sharp teeth of the gnomes. Her dazed, worried face made her forget her suspicions about where she'd been and why. The gnomes were bold in their reconnaissance mission. They dismounted their squirrels and poked around the trunk of the willow, noting the entrance high up. The stocky little men scanned the landscape, searching the tall grass for tools that would help them find a way in. Little did they know that up on the highest branch, Pelivan and the other scouts lay in stillness, watching them. Nobody asked Pelivan why he'd been outside the willow so late in the night. They were all grateful for his warning. The Pixies could try and figure out what the gnomes' next move would be and prepare their defenses. The council was already recruiting weapon makers and more scouts to defend the willow. It was only a matter of time before the gnomes figured out how to breach the entrance. Dasakata was so tired she could barely keep her eyes open in the Bolcha Devarak as the Ajara appealed to the Pixie. Today was going to be one of the busiest days of her life cycle, and she had hardly slept. Plus, it was late in the season. The Splishata, or Great Sleep, was coming soon, so the Pixie could recharge their energy and prepare for partnering and bearing new Pixies in the spring. It was always difficult to be productive this time due to their waning energy, yet it was very essential. They needed to collect more pollen and feast before winter. The gnome attack had disrupted their gathering season. In the daylight, the gnomes had retreated back to their shteta. The Pixies were all given duties similar to the regular professions by the council. Dasakata was still a stick collector, but now they would be used to make weapons for the Mlad Ochanak. The twigs were going to be fashioned into wooden stakes, much like the humans used. The Pixies were quite a bit smaller with the gnomes. They needed superior weapons to beat them. Dasakata had been thinking intently as she gathered her sticks. The gnome's appearance didn't look like a sickness to her. In an instant, the memory of the girls practicing the old ways came flooding back to her. Was it possible that a spell had been placed on her neighbors. The black-haired girl wasn't hostile, and she had the gift. It didn't make sense that a Wikanka would cast a spell that harmed the woodland creatures. Yet it was one possible explanation. Dasakata decided that she needed to tell Pelavin what she knew. However, there was something she had to do on her own first. After Ajara Jessamine made her appeal, she found herself breaking yet another rule. Dasakata went back to her branch and prowled into her mother's quarters. She started digging through Ministara's things until she found what she was looking for. She knew it. She knew her mother had not destroyed the Pazdara crown. She smiled at the knowledge that her Mnyam was not as hard-line of a pixie as she let on. Dasakata placed it on her head and closed her eyes, concentrating on the information being burned into her mind. It was made of ancient stone and filled with pure energy. It glowed brighter as it synced up with the vibration of her thoughts. The more information she retained, the warmer the ring became. The stinging was uncomfortable, but she didn't dare take it off. She must know these forbidden words. There were so many of them. How much of the human language did her Mnyam know? There was no time for guilt. She placed the stone crown back into her mother's hiding place and urgently left the willow. Careful not to be seen by the other pixies, she headed towards the human's home. Emboldened with her new knowledge, Dasakata was ready to approach her and ask if they'd performed any magic that would affect the pixie plane. It was a huge risk, but they needed her help. She was a Wikanka. Dasakata was sure of it. Normally they were the guardians of the woodland creatures, helping to protect them from the ire of the human realm. Dasakata was in luck. The girl was in her room. Boldly, she tapped at the window with her wings. She saw the confused expression of the girl give way to recognition as she headed towards her. Dasakata steadied herself as Cat flung it open. "We need help!" she screamed at the human, hoping that her voice was strong enough to carry the words to the girl's ears, and then she fluttered away from the window. She didn't receive the reaction she'd been hoping for. Instead, the Wikanka gathered her things and hastily exited her room. Dasakata followed her and quickly realized that she wasn't headed towards the woods. What was she doing? Her gurulapa burned a murky brown when she realized the gamble she'd taken had not gone according to plan. Dasakata wrestled with the idea of not telling Pelavin what she suspected was wrong with the gnomes. No, he had to know what they were up against. When she finally returned to her post, the sun was fading. Her measly bundle would be a disappointment compared to the others. As she dropped them off with the furniture makers, now weapons engineers, she spotted Pelavin. Nasmaiga was bending his ear, a deep flush on his cheeks and flickers from his chest light. She didn't dare approach him now, but he caught her glance. Back in the warmth of her woven hammock, Dasakata drifted off to sleep. She was exhausted by the unfolding events swirling around her. There was not much peace. She awoke startled from the horns sounding off again. It was night, and the gnomes were approaching. Ajara Jessamine wanted everyone in the Bolcha Devarak and Mladochnak waiting for a fight at the main entrance. A rapid knock was at their door as her family readied themselves to follow orders. Ministara motioned for Pelavin to come in quickly before he was seen. "Dasakata, Maguya Razgar Samnoitim." "Dasakata, can I speak with you?" he asked politely. Ministara nodded her approval, and they went into her room for a little privacy. They didn't have much time to talk. Pelavin had orders to join the scouts at the entrances. He clutched her close to him. "Nasmaiga sprashivaka mina jenak samnoyunka." Nasmaiga asked me to partner with her. Dasakata's eyes filled with tears, waiting for the terrible news that he'd accepted. "Mina raskaz unkanyam nuk mina ispuga mina miam yasestrak pudietka raskaz daha." I told her no, but I am afraid that my mother and sister would tell her yes. Pixies usually didn't go against the wishes of their families. Love matches were merely tolerated by the Mnyams and Sistraks, even if they were the preference of the Ajara. especially when building strong lines was so important to getting farther down the trunk of the willow. So she kissed him more lustily than she ever could have imagined. When he told her he'd said no to Nesmaiga. Breathless, she took the opportunity he'd given her. Pelavin, budietka tiem zhenak sa mной mina. Pelavin, will you partner with me? His green eyes met hers. Daha, visyag. Yes, forever. They kissed for an eternity before Pelavin grabbed her shoulders. Ile tiem hoche katak, tiem nadak stat młodachanak. Etak tuko małe budietka wam jest. If you want this, you must become a scout. It is the only way we can be together. Dasakata hastily agreed. Nobody would challenge two scouts wanting to partner before battle together. With great joy, each of them removed their petals, exposing their naked translucent skin and glowing chest lights. After many kisses, they braided their hair together, Pelavin's orange hair mingling with her white. Then he wrapped his arms around her, pushing his lighted chest against hers. Finally, they pressed their palms together, and their lights glowed brighter than either of them could have ever imagined. It was the most beautiful thing they'd ever experienced. Glycerin. Minasara slightly opened the door and was shocked by her discovery. She quietly closed it, sat down on her favorite twig chair, and wept. She knew her daughter well, and she'd made a difficult choice, the right one. Her silent pride gave way to grief. Her only day would be leaving and doing a very dangerous job. She would also be following her inner light. Pelavin and Dasakata emerged from her room. With one glance, she knew that her Myam understood. She nodded her blessing, and she ran to her and hugged her closely. Spasba pan Malik, thank you for understanding. Her master was confused, but he accepted his day's embrace. Without looking back, she left her branch ready to be Mladochinak with Pelavin. Ajar Jessamine, Mina Zalal Sparaklaha Vilava. Queen Jessamine, I wish to fight for the willow, Dasakata stated solemnly in unison with other new recruits, while joining the Mladochinak. Many of them had made the decision the very night that the gnomes made a second visit to the home. They had tried to climb to the entrance using ladders made of sticks and prairie grass. Fortunately for the pixies, they had not made them stable enough or tall enough to reach. The next days were busily spent preparing for another attack from the gnomes. They worked diligently within the canopy and stayed close to the trunk. None dare venture out to the wildflowers or grasses beyond. The pranksters amongst their ranks grew valuable. Many of them had seen human weapons. One reported of a boy using a wishbone-shaped weapon with a stretchy substance that hurled rocks at squirrels. If accurate, it was quite effective at harming the squirrels. Although the pixie didn't wish to be cruel to animals, the gnomes had put their transportation in harm's way. Understanding how to make this human device proved to be difficult, especially since they didn't know what the stretchy substance was. In the meantime, the pixies hurried to gather as many rocks as possible, which were pebbles in human size. The furniture makers had sharpened sticks into large spears, and Ajar Jessamine ordered that they were to be thrown from the branches if the gnomes dared to enter under the canopy again. Dasakata trained exhaustively with a group of recruits. She practiced throwing her spear while fluttering just out of reach. Afterward, they participated in ground combat using their spears to block blows from their partners. When training was finished, she sat quietly enjoying her pollen, licking the last bit lustily from her fingers. She was caught off guard when she heard Nesmaiga's angry voice behind her. Sukaka, Tim Klaus Pelavin Izak Mina. Bitch, you stole Pelavin from me. She continued her rant. Mina liblana unk, mina budit vinak unk poyaja. I love him. I will win him back. Dasakata whirled around. She wanted to explain they hadn't meant to hurt her. Nesmaiga! Prashin Mina. Pelavin hocha raskatjem Nesmaiga, forgive me. Pelavin wanted to tell you. She was cut off mid-sentence by Nesmaiga's pronouncement. Mina mlad ochanak to ze. I'm a scout also. It was clear that Nesmaiga and her family were not giving up on the partnership with Pelavan. It made sense. Their two lines were well suited to each other. Dasakata wanted to tell Nasmaiga that she and Pelavan had been in love far longer than either would admit. She didn't dare breathe a word of their love partnering, or Pelavan would suffer. He would be an outcast, and Ajara Jessamine would look down upon both their lines, perhaps for generations. Dasakata squared her shoulders and held her wings high. Tem Pazulstarius. You're welcome to try. This angered Nasmaiga even more, and she spat with fury. Tem Pakalinyam Ravnimina. Your line is not equal to mine. The words stung Dasakata, but she stayed in control of her emotions. Pelavan would not condone her arguing with their partnership with a romantic rival. The words stung Dasakata, but she stayed in control of her emotions. Pelavan would not condone her arguing about their partnership with a romantic rival in such a public place. Dasakata fluttered away, her violet eyes a very deep purple. She hoped that the Ajara wouldn't assign them to be on the same squad. She knew if Nasmaiga had access to Pelavan, she would try to convince him that foregoing a love match would mean bettering his line. She shuddered just a little. Determined to remain focused on the coming attack, she picked up her spear again. She would show Pelavan that she had the best line after all. Thanks for listening. Bye.